All right, thank you very much. Hello, everybody. It's your good friend Pozzible here, and I'm back in action with another look at another movie really quickly for you in an instant movie review of Pitch Perfect 2. And let me tell you something, Pitch Perfect 2 is far from perfect. But that said, it's still worthy. You gotta take these movies sometimes for what they are. Sometimes, especially during the summer, it's nice to have a shallow comedy where it's just a bunch of jokes and things aren't always so connected as you would expect them to be. With Pitch Perfect 2, the main story is that the Acapellas, or excuse me, the Bellas, are humiliate themselves in front of the president during his birthday party. And it's their chance at redemption to go to Europe for this big world championship to get back into the good graces of the a cappella universe. The funniest part about this movie is it balances this idea that a cappella singing and being a part of this a cappella group is the greatest, most unimportant thing you could ever have in your life. It's wonderful, but it means nothing in the long run. And the way they juggle that is hilarious. And here's the thing you gotta remember. And grant you, okay, I had to leave to go to get more popcorn during one part of the show, and I might have missed something, but I never got why, of all the a cappella groups in America, we were gonna send the disgraced ones to Europe to compete in this competition. I grant why they wanted to go, but why the a cappella community let them go is still beyond me. From what I'm understanding, and don't quote me on this, it's because the rest of the world doesn't like us that they didn't want to go. No one else would even want to go there except for this group. Is that true? Like I said, I left to get some popcorn, so I felt like that part was a little undefined. That's why I brought it up here. Let's talk about some other moments where this movie lacked. Remember, this is Elizabeth Banks' directorial debut, and I feel she bit off more than she could chew. When it came to the characters you see here, for example, on your far left, you have the lady who is there to remind people that her life was 10 times as worse as anybody else's life. So she had the one-liners, kind of like the Asian, over to your right. If you saw the first one, and if you hadn't yet, you should see it. It was a surprise hit. All she did was have these freaky one-liners. They were hysterical, but they were kind of unsettling because of what she said. Same thing here. Her character did not change at all, but that's okay. You've got all these other people who are here to make up for it. And that's kind of like what they did. They can't juggle these characters like the Avengers, where everyone has a backstory and character development. You have too many people, you only have 2 hours, so you gotta focus on just a few and just let the other people have the one-liners. Now let's talk about the girl on the far right. Wasn't she the slut from the first one? She reminds me of her, but the hair is different. They all look a little different, so I forgave it. The point is this. I couldn't tell you who she was! Don't know her name. She barely had a line in the whole movie. She was literally there for eye candy. And great eye candy, don't get me wrong, but she literally had no significance to the whole plot. If she was removed, you wouldn't notice. This movie comes down to a lot of moments with Fat Amy. Not Fat Amy, but like with Fat Amy. Fat Amy had a situation with Bumper, her boyfriend. Let me just say this about this, and this defines one of the problems with Pitch Perfect 2. If her problem with Bumper had not been resolved, it would have meant nothing in the long run, okay? It had some cute moments, and that's what Pitch Perfect 2 was, a bunch of cute moments that luckily did not overshadow the whole story of them trying to get redemption by having to beat the #1 team, which was the German team. And that was hysterical. You had that moment where these guys were trying to do everything but singing, apparently, and they kind of lost their rhythm. And, you know, it reminds me of those sport movies, and this is where I really loved Pitch Perfect. it had this sport movie feeling where they had to go from being number 2 at the bottom, seeking redemption by going to this one competition. And they tried all these other things. They had this one place they had to go to where they could practice, and they had this other place to go to where I have to admit, I found offense to that, but I'll get into that in a second, where they had to go and perform and compete against other ones, and guess who's there? The German ones. Well, you know how this works. If it's the middle of the movie and you're competing against your rival, you know how that goes. But the point is this. That main story arc had dots of other stories that did not connect to that story arc at all. It meant nothing to it. Like Becca got a job at a recording label. That was good for her, and it had its own story arc that ran parallel to this, but it never really connected. Well, it connected at the end of it, but it didn't have any significance to the main story arc, which was the redemption part. Of course, they did tease a little Becca and Chloe for us because all those people wanted them to get together after part 1. They had a cute little moment where, Anna Kendrick was meeting the German team, and her moment of comedy was how she lost her mojo with them. She couldn't insult them right. Every insult she wanted to yell out turned out to be a compliment, and it was hilarious. And then, Becca and Chloe had this one moment when they were camping out, but that's neither here nor there. Don't get your hopes up for anything. It was just a tease is what it was. Lastly, the girl second to the left. She was basically like the freshman, but she's the legacy. And she, her mom was a Bella way back in the day. And her story also defines a problem with this movie a little bit. It's so shallow. It starts off, everyone says they hate her. And then she gets accepted and she's in, but there's no moment in the middle for her. There's a moment for everyone else, but she never really has her moment. The problem with her was that she never grew. She was always there. She didn't have a weakness that she had to overcome. Her problem was getting accepted. That was her weakness. But she never had the moment where it was like, okay, you're in. Okay? Now, it's a sequel. It's a part 2. And Hollywood, I want to strangle this out of you. Okay? You can't seem to make a sequel without doing a scene that plays homage to the first one. And of course, what do they do in the second one? They have the sing-off, right? Well, here's my problem with the sing-off. I won't say anything about the sing-off itself, except they have some very nice special guests at that sing-off. No. Here's my issue with it. And nobody addresses this in the movie, so that's why I'm bringing it to you now. When they go to the sing-off, it's at a rich person's place. And he is apparently the biggest fan of a cappella you can ever imagine. He offers a $42,000 gift card prize to the winner. Now, I don't care what it was for, but that's a pretty big prize. That's almost $50,000. But the point is this. It has been made clear that the Bellas are the 3-time winning champions when they finally get to the presidency, okay? These are not amateurs. These are people at the top of their game. They're the best a cappella group in the nation, apparently. And yet, it wasn't until they fell from grace and were disgraced that they met this guy? He never invited them beforehand? That's one thing. Here's the second thing. Bumper would know about them. The Troublemakers were there. And the Troublemakers obviously knew about this guy. And Fat Amy was dating one of the Troublemakers. So wouldn't that alone have let her be able to tell, hey guys, this is what Bumper told me about? It didn't fit the narrative. But you know what? All my complaints about this movie And my review has not been a review, it's been a plausible bitch run when it comes to this movie. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It wins off of one-liners. It wins off of charm. It wins off of how people have changed since the first movie, and so much more. And the good singing, too. Great effects. Not special effects, but great, visuals and everything. A fun ride. A popcorn ride. A safe ride. Something you just sit back and enjoy and shut off your brain. So I loved it. Pitch Perfect 2, definitely a see it. Despite all my reservations about the movie, it pulled it off, I still say that Elizabeth Banks, as the director, bit off more than she could chew, but that said, it still succeeded. So I recommend seeing it. If you haven't seen it yet, try it out. I think you'll enjoy it. A little bit long for an instant movie review, but hey, gotta have some fun, right? All right, guys, that's it for me for today. We'll see you at the theaters.